Hi everybody, thank you for joining me again for another edition of Camp Country Living. I'm Lisa Steele and I'm here in the mess hall at Camp Country Living, and today I am really excited. I'm going to show you how to make these super cute mini pies for Thanksgiving. This year obviously is going to be different for a lot of us, all of us. So whether you want to make these pies just for your family or they're super cute if you want to drop some off at a neighbor or a friend's house, they're just super cute and they're really easy to make. And one thing I like about them is you can make a bunch of different types. You don't have to make a whole pie of one type. So if you only happen to have, 3 or 4 apples, not enough for a pie, you can make just a couple apple, you can make a couple blueberry, you can make any kind of fruit pies. You can make pumpkin, you can make pecan pie. So whatever your normal pie recipe is, you can use. So you don't have to have a special recipe for these little pies. You can just use whatever your regular filling is. So again, we'll let a couple people join in. But my website, fresheggsdaily.com, I do have a recipe for an apple pie. So if you want specific measurements to make the mini pies as apple, you can use that recipe. But if you have a favorite pie recipe, you can just use that. And your pie crust is going to make probably about a dozen mini pies. So it's really easy to convert. The only thing that I would do is have your pieces be a little bit smaller, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So anyway, so today we are going to make mini pies for Thanksgiving. So to get started, you absolutely can use a store-bought crust. I used store-bought crust for years, but I'm going to show you how simple it is to make your own homemade crust. And I use this is pretty much my go-to. I use it for, chicken pot pies. I use it for fruit pies. I use it for pretty much any kind of pie I'm making. So in my food processor, I have 2.5 cups of flour. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. If I'm making a pot pie, I'll leave the sugar out, but for the sweet pies, so a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of sugar, 2.5 cups of flour in my food processor because we're making pie crust. So once I've got that, the key to this is that everything is super cold. So I have 2 sticks of butter cut up into cubes that I had in the refrigerator. But you can keep them in the freezer. I like to do that because you want everything to be chilled for your pie crust to be super, super flaky. So I'm just gonna pulse that a little bit to mix the flour and sugar. Then I'm gonna add my 2 cups of butter. You can also use those Crisco butter sticks or Crisco. So you just need 2 cups of whatever, not 2 cups, 2 sticks of butter. So the equivalent of 2 sticks of butter. And I'm just gonna pulse this a little bit to break up the large clumps. We're having some construction done. They just finished, so really just like that. You just wanna get rid of the clumps and it's just gonna be kind of sandy with little clumps in it. Then I'm going to add some vodka. Vodka in pie crust is great. It burns off. The alcohol is going to cook off, so it's not going to be alcoholic. You're not going to taste it or smell it. But the vodka, because it evaporates so quickly when the pie bakes, it makes the crust super flaky. So I'm going to add about 2 or 3 tablespoons. I can eyeball it. 2 or 3 tablespoons. So a splash of vodka. And then I'm just going to pulse that to mix it up a little bit. And then the other key is ice water. So you're going to use between 1/4 and 1/2 cup, depending on how much vodka you splash in. And you just want to do it until your dough starts to hold together. You don't want it to be too wet. So I'm going to have the motor running, pour the water in slowly, and see how it looks. And that's about when I stop. Did you see that? It's starting to hold together. So when I grab a bit of it, it holds together. That's actually even a little wet. I would have done a little bit more dry, but anyway, so you just want to do it till it's just holding together. You don't want to put in any more water than that. Like I said, maybe a half quarter cup to a half a cup of ice water, but everything's super cold. And once you've got it to that point, you just dump it out onto saran wrap. I divide it into two. I flatten it into discs and chill it for 30 minutes to an hour. So I've done that to save time. So that was pie crust anyway. That's how quick it is to make. Yeah, Bruce said it was a little wet. It was a little wet. I didn't measure my vodka and I wasn't paying attention. I couldn't really see it from my angle. But you really want to just swirl it until it just starts to hold together, and boom. I'm just gonna add some flour to that though. I'll fix it. But here's my crust I made earlier when I was paying attention. And I flattened into a disc and I chilled it for, well, a couple hours. This is great. You can make extra dough and leave it in the freezer so you have it when you need it. But that's my go-to dough, and it's super easy and it's really good. So then all I want to do is roll it out. And since I'm going to be making mini pies, I'm actually going to make them in this 12 cup pie cookie tin, muffin tin, whatever, cupcake tin. Sorry, it's been quite a day with the construction workers here. And then for presentation or to give to somebody, I would put it in this little mini 6 tin and maybe put a couple different pies in it. But I'm going to use the 12 tin to show you. So I've got my crust, and I've got my rolling pin, and I'm just going to roll it out like you would roll out a regular pie crust, except you don't need it to be round or, you know, pie shaped or anything. But you want to get it to about, you know, the same, about a 1/4 inch thickness. This dough is super easy to work with. I really like it. It just makes a really, really nice dough for, you know, pretty much whatever you're making, whatever kind of pies. All right, so that's rolled out. So then I've got a biscuit cutter. This is about 3.5 inches. 3.5 to 4 inches works really well. And I'm just gonna cut my circles, and I've buttered my tin, and I'm just gonna press one of the circles into the compartment there and just go along and do them all. Again, for anybody who joined late, we are making mini apple pies for Thanksgiving. I'm Lisa Steele from Fresh Eggs Daily, and I do have a lot of recipes on my blog, a lot of egg recipes. We raise chickens, so I cook a lot of eggs, but I do like to bake. So like I said, I do have an apple pie recipe that can be easily converted. But this is great because as I was going through getting the ingredients together, I only had a couple of apples, so I didn't have enough to make a full pie, but I can absolutely make a couple mini pies. I'll roll out one more. And then I had some blueberries, so I can make a couple blueberry pies. You only need about maybe a tablespoon or two for each little pie. So if you just kind of, you know, you can use the ready-made pie filling. I made pecan pies the other day with corn syrup and some nice pecans, butter. Why don't you leave a comment below? Tell me what your favorite pie is, because I would like to actually get some recipes together, because I just guess on the amount that I need. I sort of mix up all the fillings, and then, you know, just they make as many pies as they're gonna make. So I've got my 6 little circles in my pie tin. Here's my mini pie tin. And I've got my apples. So as I mentioned, this is a regular apple pie recipe. So you can take any traditional apple pie recipe. The only thing for these mini pies is I like to cut them into smaller chunks because you've got such a small pie, you don't want big pieces. So I cored and peeled my apples. I cut them into little chunks, and then I just added some brown sugar, a little bit of flour, cinnamon, I believe that was it. But whatever you put into your regular apple pies is fine. And then I'm just gonna move this up here so you can see it. Then I'm gonna spoon some of the filling into each of my little crusts. And same, they're gonna cook down a little bit, you know, so you wanna make sure that each of your bottom crusts has enough filling in it. These have been sitting for a couple hours, so they made some nice juice in the bottom there. so there's my apples. But really, I mean, you could make mini peach pies. I did put some blueberries together. All right, so there's my filling. Because we live in Maine, we have really beautiful Maine blueberries. So I just mixed in some blueberries, sugar, a little bit of lime zest, and some cardamom. And I can make some blueberry pies out of that, excuse me, later. So I've got my filling in my little pies. And now comes the fun part. So more flour. So I like to make a lattice top on top of apple pies. And it really is not hard at all. So I've got my dough, and I'm gonna roll it into sort of something long and skinny instead of a circle. And again, you want about 1/4 inch. Making sure it doesn't stick to the cutting board. All right. So there's my dough sort of in a long skinny thing. And then you can use a regular knife or you can use a pastry cutter. I have one with the ruffled edge and the plain edge. So I'm just gonna cut it into a rectangle, rough rectangle. And then I'm gonna cut little 1/4 inch. If I were making a big pie, I'd make them a little bit wider, but I'm gonna cut them into fairly thin strips. So we need, whoops, trying to make them all about the same width. Okay, so I've got 4 there. Oops, it would come apart. So this, I tried a bunch of different ways to make the lattice tops on the mini pies, and this is the easiest way. So I've got my 4 strips going this way, like this. You want to keep them fairly close together. So then I'm going to take 4 strips to go the other way. So what I'm going to do is pull back 2 of my strips at the halfway point and lay that down, then put them back, pull back the other 2, lay another strip down, put them back, oops, pull back the other 2. So you're just doing the opposites to make the lattice. And for these mini pies, 4 strips seems to be a good number. I do have an extra one here, so I'll put it here. And then if you think it needs to go a little wider, you could do another one. Just cut one of these off. The nice thing about this is it's so small, you can patch it if you need to. So I'm just gonna put one more, fake a strip in there to make sure that I have enough. All right, so you're just going under, over, till you've got your little patchwork there. Then I take a glass, and you want your glass to be just a little bit bigger than your cupcake, the opening at the top. So you take a glass, you can dip it in a little bit of flour so nothing sticks, and then you're just gonna press down and get rid of all of the extra. And you've got your nice little lattice top. If you want to, I always keep a bowl of water when I'm baking to make dough kind of stick to each other. So I just kind of wet, I'll put it up here so you can see it. I just kind of wet around the edge of the dough, and I'm just gonna put my lattice top on top and then kind of press it so it stays, because you definitely want it to attach to the bottom crust. Look how perfect that came out. So that's a really great trick for making these mini pies. About 15 minutes. I'll show you again. I made 6 of these the other day. It took me forever. They are pretty labor intensive. But the lattice top does look so much nicer. So again, we're making mini apple pies. If you make pumpkin or sweet potato or pecan pie, you're gonna leave the top open, obviously. You could make a solid top for the pies if you wanted to, you know, just roll out and cut out circles, you know, and just put the solid top on and make a few vents. But the lattice is so pretty. we've got this rolled out again. So we take our cutter, we make a rectangle, and then we want to divide it into 8 strips. So we just cut them thinly. I think this would be really nice for Thanksgiving now. I mean, this year or any year, just to make, 5 or 6 different types of pies, make a couple of each, and then you can display them. People can just pick what they want. It's easier than trying to cut into pies and making a whole pie. So we've got our 4 strips here. We're gonna peel back 2 about halfway down, put one going the other way, put those 2 back, and pull back the other 2. Put another one, pull those 2 back, put another one, and I'll go this way. Pull these 2 back, put that one. I think I do like 5. 5 strips makes a more, kind of like a tighter weave. So I'm just gonna put one more on the top. It's very forgiving though. I mean, this dough, if you have to kind of like fudge it and cut a piece and, put it somewhere else or kind of glue 2 pieces together, it really will work with you. So we've got our lattice work there, and I'm just gonna flour the top of my glass again and press it down, get rid of all the extra. Oops. And I have a spatula for that very reason. If it happens to fall out of the glass, you just take it on a spatula, and again, we're gonna wet our crust and then slide the top on and then just kind of press and tuck it. And you have little mini pies. So once I do all of these, which will take me like the rest of the night probably, I'm just going to brush them with some egg. So I have an egg there. Add a little bit of my water. I like to do an egg water wash on the top of my pies. It makes them come out nice and golden. So these, since they're not a full pie, and since the apple pieces are so small, I would cook them at 375 for maybe 15 minutes and then check them. Then do them another 5 minutes or so if you need to get a nice golden crust. But I'm just going to brush the whisked egg and water onto the top like that. And then, as I said, they would go into the oven like this for like 15 or 20 minutes. And then when they come out, Winston, they're gonna look like this. And they would look super cute if you had 2 pumpkin and maybe 2 pecan, 2 apple. And then all I did was I got these little 6 compartment muffin tins, and I got some nice Thanksgiving ribbon, wired ribbon, and there was a hole in the end of the tin, and I tied a bow. So to give this to a neighbor filled with 6 mini pies, I think would be really, really a super nice Thanksgiving gift, for an elderly neighbor or someone in a nursing facility or relatives. You even could freeze this whole thing and then put it in the mail, send it priority, and you could mail them, because I think they would travel pretty well and they're not going to go bad even if they defrost, for a day or so. So we have a corgi, and he's usually pretty well behaved. I tell him he can't bark when I'm filming, but a lot of times he does. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll try making your own pie crust. As I mentioned, I do have an apple pie recipe on my blog, fresheggsdaily.com, and it does have the crust recipe. I just find it super easy, and so as you can see, I made the 6 bottoms and 2 tops, and I have this much left over from the first ball, and I still have a whole half of the crust left. So it'll easily make your whole dozen mini pies. So you figure 1 regular pie recipe will make 12 mini pies. So anyway, thanks for joining me for this episode of Camp Country Living, and I hope you'll come back for more. And they've done so many. I've really enjoyed watching them, so make sure you scroll back through the IGTV, Country Living's IGTV, and see what else everybody's been up to, because it's been fun. I've been enjoying being at camp. So anyway, again, Lisa Steele from Fresh Eggs Daily. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you.